The moment you stop reaching out and the other side goes silent too, something very important just happened. You didn't lose the connection. You exposed it, because in that silence, there is no more guessing, no more chasing, no more confusion. Only one thing is left behind: truth about intention. Most people completely misunderstand this stage. They think silence means rejection, loss, or failure. But in reality, silence is not the end of communication. It is the beginning of clarity. And if you stay with this long enough, you will understand something most people never see in relationships: what a person does when they are no longer being emotionally guided. If this sounds familiar, stay until the end, because what happens next explains everything about who is invested and who is not. Silence is something most people misread in relationships. Have you ever noticed that the moment you stop reaching out, everything suddenly becomes quiet? No messages, no effort, no small check-ins, just silence. And at first it feels confusing and even a little painful. Your mind starts searching for reasons, trying to explain what changed. But this moment is not just emptiness, it is actually the beginning of clarity. Because when you remove your effort from the interaction, you are no longer shaping the outcome. You are simply observing it. And what you observe in that silence often tells you more than any conversation ever could. When you stop contacting him and he also becomes silent, something important begins to show itself. Not a game, not manipulation, but truth. Without your presence constantly keeping things alive, you finally see what he chooses to do on his own. Silence reveals intention in a very honest way. A man who truly values you will feel your absence even without dramatic actions, and he will naturally move toward you. But a man who is not invested will remain exactly where he is, without feeling the need to close the distance. This is why stepping back is powerful. It removes noise and shows reality as it is. Many people struggle in this stage because silence is often misunderstood. The first emotional reaction is usually fear. You start thinking maybe you did something wrong, or maybe he lost interest, or maybe the connection is fading away. But silence is not always rejection. Silence is information. And when you learn to read it correctly, your entire understanding of relationships changes. Before the silence, your effort might have been carrying everything. You were initiating conversations, keeping energy alive, filling emotional gaps, and maintaining momentum. That constant input can hide the true level of his interest. But when you step back, the dynamic changes completely. The effort is no longer one-sided. There is no more emotional filling of space. What remains is raw behavior. If he chooses to reach out, it is not because you pushed him or reminded him. It is because he felt something internally that made him act. And if he does not reach out, that also becomes clear data. It shows that without your effort, the connection does not continue on its own. This is not about your worth. It is about his level of investment and choice. This is where emotional discipline becomes important. Most people cannot sit in silence without reacting. They feel discomfort and quickly try to fix it by sending another message or restarting the conversation. But in doing so, they interrupt the very process that could have given them clarity. They turn a moment of truth back into confusion. Real understanding comes when you allow silence to continue long enough to reveal what is actually there, not what you hope is there. There is also a personal side to this silence that many people ignore. The way you respond to it reflects your own emotional strength. If silence creates anxiety and pushes you to chase, it can slowly build a pattern where you give more than you receive. But if you learn to stay calm in that space, you begin to shift internally. You stop trying to earn attention and start observing whether attention is freely given. That shift changes your entire emotional position in relationships. Silence simplifies everything. It removes mixed signals, overthinking, and emotional guessing. It answers a question most people are afraid to ask directly: what happens if I stop trying? And the answer is always useful, even if it is uncomfortable. Because if the connection fades in silence, it was never stable to begin with. And if it grows stronger, then it was real without force. Either way, you gain truth instead of assumption. When you stop chasing, something very subtle but powerful happens. You remove pressure from the connection. You step out of the role of keeping everything alive. And in that space, a man's real level of interest becomes visible. Not through words, not through promises, but through action without prompting. This is where intention is revealed. Anyone can respond when engaged, but not everyone continues when there is distance. Chasing often begins with genuine feelings. You like someone, you feel connected, and naturally you want to keep things going. So you text first, you follow up, you maintain momentum. At first it feels normal, but over time it can create imbalance. One person becomes the engine of the relationship while the other simply responds. It may still feel like a connection, but the energy is not equal, and imbalance always hides the truth about mutual interest. When you step back, you are not playing games or trying to create distance. You are simply removing your influence from the situation, and in that absence, clarity begins to form. If he reaches out, it is pure intention. It means he is choosing you without being guided or reminded. That is very different from responding out of habit or convenience. It shows genuine internal motivation. A man who is truly interested does not need constant pressure to stay connected. He may not always be perfectly consistent, but there will be natural movement toward you. Thoughts about you will lead to action. Curiosity will lead to contact. When you stop chasing, you allow that natural behavior to appear without interference, and that is where truth becomes visible. Both outcomes in this situation are valuable. If he steps forward, you gain clarity that his interest is real and mutual. You no longer have to question your place in his life, but if he does not step forward, that is also clarity. It shows that without your energy holding things together, he is not choosing to invest. And while that realization can be uncomfortable, it protects you from building something based on hope instead of reality. Many people fear this stage because it feels like loss. But in reality, it is not loss, it is exposure. You are not losing something solid. You are discovering what was never fully stable. And that discovery is important because it saves time, energy, and emotional investment that would otherwise go into uncertainty. Over time, something shifts within you. You begin to value your energy more. You stop asking how to keep someone interested and start asking whether their interest is strong enough to deserve your attention. This is a quiet but powerful change. It creates boundaries without forcing them. It builds self-respect without needing external validation. This is not about becoming cold or withdrawing love. It is about balance. You remain open, kind and receptive, but you no longer overextend yourself to maintain something that should naturally be mutual. Healthy connection does not require constant chasing from one side. It flows both ways with ease and consistency. In the end, stopping the chase does not push the right person away. It brings truth closer. Because real interest does not disappear when you create space. It becomes more visible. And that visibility is what allows you to make decisions based on reality, not emotion or assumption. Emotional self-control is one of the most underrated but powerful qualities in dating and relationships. It does not mean you stop feeling emotions or pretend you do not care. It simply means you learn to choose your response instead of reacting instantly to whatever you feel in the moment. When communication becomes unclear or inconsistent, this ability becomes even more important. Because in those moments your emotions can rise very fast and push you toward impulsive actions that you may not fully think through. Staying grounded helps you slow everything down so you can see the situation more clearly instead of getting lost in emotional pressure. When you like someone, it is natural to want reassurance and connection. So when there is a delay in replies or a change in behavior, your first instinct might be to react quickly. You may feel like sending another message, asking what went wrong, or trying to fix the distance immediately. But most of these reactions come from anxiety, not true intention. And when you act from anxiety, you often lose your emotional balance. Self-control creates a gap between feeling and action. In that gap you gain space to think, observe and understand what is actually happening, instead of assuming the worst too quickly. In that space you begin to see things more clearly. Instead of reacting to a single moment, you start noticing patterns. This alone can save you from misunderstandings and emotional decisions you might later regret. There is also a quiet strength in someone who does not rush to fill every silence. It shows emotional stability and self-respect. It signals that your peace does not completely depend on someone else's behavior. You are not ignoring your emotions, but you are not letting them control your actions either. That balance creates a calm presence that naturally feels more confident and stable. Without emotional self-control, people often fall into cycles of overgiving. They keep investing more energy into someone who is inconsistent, hoping that effort will create clarity or stability. But real connection does not grow through pressure or chasing. It grows through mutual interest and shared effort. When you stay in control of your actions, you allow the other person to show their real level of interest without being influenced or pushed. This is where honesty enters the situation, because now what happens is based on genuine choice, not emotional pressure from one side. It is also important to understand that self-control protects you from misreading situations. Not every delay or quiet moment has a negative meaning. People have their own routines, responsibilities, and emotional space. If you react too quickly, you may create problems that did not even exist. But when you stay calm, you allow situations to unfold naturally. You give reality time to reveal itself instead of forcing an interpretation too early. This approach reduces stress and helps you make more balanced decisions. Emotional self-control is not about staying silent or hiding your feelings. It is about timing and intention. When you do express yourself, you do it from clarity instead of emotional urgency. That makes your communication more meaningful and less reactive. People respond better to calm and clear expression than emotional pressure or confusion. Over time, this shifts your entire experience in relationships. You stop feeling anxious about every message, every delay, or every silence. Instead, you feel more centered and steady within yourself. This also changes your mindset. You are no longer trying to manage someone else's behavior. You are focusing on your own responses. That is where real emotional strength develops. It keeps you from overthinking, overreacting, and overinvesting in situations that are not balanced. Most importantly, it ensures that whatever connection you are building is based on mutual effort rather than emotional dependency or pressure from one side. Words in relationships can often feel very convincing. Someone might say they care, that they miss you, or that they are just busy. In the moment, these words can feel comforting and reassuring. But words alone are not always enough to understand reality. This is why distance often becomes more revealing than conversation. When space enters a connection, actions become more visible than promises. What someone does in that space tells you far more than what they say during close communication. When everything is smooth and consistent, it is easy for someone to maintain a certain image. Messages flow, attention feels mutual, and things seem stable. But when distance appears, whether naturally or because you step back, the dynamic changes. There is no constant interaction to rely on, no immediate emotional exchange. This is the moment where true interest is tested, because now there is no pressure, no habit, and no emotional push keeping things active. Only intention remains. A man who is genuinely interested will not disappear when things become quiet. He may not always respond perfectly or instantly, but there will be a natural effort to reconnect. He will reach out, check in, or find a way to re-establish contact because he wants to, not because he is forced to. That difference between wanting to and having to is very important. It shows whether the connection is based on real interest or just ongoing interaction. When there is no real investment, distance exposes that clearly as well. Someone who only engages when you are actively present will often fade when the energy is removed. This is not always about rejection or worth. It is about priority and choice. People naturally give effort to what feels important to them, and when that effort is not there consistently, it becomes a signal that should not be ignored or over-explained. Many people struggle here because they focus more on words than behavior. They replay messages, hold on to promises, and try to find meaning in things that are not supported by action. But words are easy to say. Action requires consistency and intention. Distance removes confusion and shows behavior directly. It shows whether someone moves closer or stays distant, whether they invest or slowly step away. These patterns are much more reliable than temporary emotional statements. This is not about expecting perfection. Everyone has moments of inconsistency. But there is a difference between occasional imbalance and a repeated pattern of lack of effort. When someone truly cares, even if they are imperfect, there is still a sense of presence. You do not feel completely uncertain about where you stand all the time. There is effort that keeps the connection alive in a real way, not just in words. Understanding this requires a shift in mindset. It means choosing clarity over comfort. Words can feel comforting because they create hope, but actions create truth. And when you are honest with yourself about what you are experiencing, you begin to see things more clearly. A person's response to distance reveals whether their interest is strong enough to continue without constant emotional support or reminders. At the core of everything, this is not really about tactics or strategies. It is about self-worth. Many people get stuck focusing on what to do next, how to respond, or how to keep someone interested. But the deeper question is always about value. How much do you value yourself in this situation? Because when you operate from self-worth, you stop trying to force connection. You stop overextending yourself to maintain something that should naturally be mutual. Instead of asking how to keep someone interested, you begin asking whether their interest is consistent enough to deserve your energy. That shift changes everything. You are no longer chasing validation. You are observing effort, consistency, and respect. And when you truly value yourself, you do not feel the need to convince someone to choose you. You simply allow their actions to show you where they stand. This mindset is not about playing games or controlling outcomes. It is about boundaries. It is about deciding what you will accept and what you will not. When you operate from that place, your behavior becomes natural. You communicate when you feel like it, not out of fear. You give attention, but you also expect it in return. You are not afraid of silence because silence does not shake your sense of value. There is a deep sense of peace in this approach. You stop feeling like you are in competition or constantly proving your worth. You allow connections to unfold naturally. If someone steps forward, you respond openly. If they do not, you do not chase. You move on with clarity instead of confusion. Even disappointment feels different because it is not tied to self-doubt. It is simply acceptance that the connection was not aligned. In the end, the real focus is not about winning someone over. It is about not losing yourself in the process. It is about staying grounded in your value even when things feel uncertain. And when you do that, your choices become clearer, your emotions become steadier, and your relationships become more balanced. Because the right person will not be confused by your calmness or your silence. They will understand it, respond to it, and meet you with effort instead of distance. And if they do not, that itself becomes the clarity you needed all along. In the end, everything comes down to one simple truth. When you remove constant effort, pressure, and overthinking from a connection, what remains is honesty. Silence, distance, and space are not enemies of love or connection. They are simply moments that reveal what words often hide. They show you how much effort is natural and how much is forced, and they help you understand where things truly stand without confusion. Emotional control, patience, and self-respect are not about playing games or testing someone. They are about staying grounded in yourself while allowing others the freedom to show who they really are. When you stop reacting out of fear and start observing with calm awareness, you begin to see relationships more clearly. You also begin to understand your own value in a deeper way. The most important lesson is that real connection does not require chasing or pressure. It grows through mutual effort, consistency, and genuine interest from both sides. And if those things are not present, clarity is not something to fear, but something to accept. Because in the end, you do not lose anything by seeing the truth. You only gain understanding, self-respect, and the ability to choose relationships that feel balanced, healthy, and real.